Funding for Schaefer-Ellis is provided by Squarespace, the sponsor of today's video. From websites and online stores to marketing tools and analytics, Squarespace is the all-in-one platform to build a beautiful online presence and run your business. Well, it's all been building to this. The inevitable DreamWorks ranking video from the internet's #1 DreamWorks apologist. Sure, it's a studio founded solely out of revenge by a gigantic asshole, and sure, many of their films can be pretty rough around the edges, but damn it, this studio is filled with talented people who pour their heart and soul into some iconic animated classics that don't get nearly enough respect because of where they come from. In spite of their missteps, DreamWorks is nothing short of an amazing studio, much like how Adam Sandler is an amazing actor. They both just actively choose to make shit too often, and it hurts my feelings. But whatever, it's time to finally rank everything they've done. DreamWorks, that is, not Adam Sandler. All 38 of their current theatrical releases. That's right, Joseph King of Dreams doesn't count. I'm not watching it. You can't make me. Also, no, I'm not watching The Croods 2 because in theaters only is not a valid release option at the moment, and I'm not delaying the video to wait until it comes out on streaming. Well, we've got a lot of ground to cover, so let's jump right in.
Disappointment in the game of life.
And the award for the worst DreamWorks movie of all time goes to... Probably not what you were expecting, huh? Turbo is one of the worst animated movies I've ever seen in my entire life. It is agonizingly bad. I can't remember the last time a movie gave me nothing to enjoy quite like this one. It's basically the DreamWorks equivalent of The Good Dinosaur, but at least The Good Dinosaur had amazing landscapes and like 2 good scenes. Turbo has nothing. It is worthless. Every single character, relationship, and plot point in this movie feels hollow and artificial. Nothing is genuine. Nothing is earned. The plot is just Ratatouille again, but done without a single iota of that movie's brilliance. Oh, watch this animal succeed at something he really wants to do, but everyone tells him he can't do. Isn't that inspiring? No. Because that's all this movie is. It doesn't have any great themes or additional layers of brilliance on top of its basic premise. It is literally just a snail who goes fast and gets a chance to race. That's it. It's not dramatic, it's not enticing, it's not funny. Good God, is it not funny? I didn't laugh, chuckle, smile, or even think, wow, that was a good attempt at a joke once. There is nothing here. The plot is hysterically predictable at every turn. There are no surprises whatsoever, which is ironic since this movie has a motherfucking twist villain. Well, okay, maybe it's a good twist villain. No, it's honestly the worst twist villain I've ever seen in a feature film. Forget Mr. That Was His Mistake or Assistant Mayor Sheepdweeb. This movie's twist villain is on the same level as the Paul Blart Mall Cop twist villain. Oh, what a surprise. It's the racer that the snail idolized for so many years. Except he's really a bad guy who never once acts like a bad guy until the big reveal scene. He tells the snail, I'm gonna win the big race and you're a loser, you stupid snail. You suck. And now that the racer has revealed that he's a big meanie head to the snail and literally nobody else, he suddenly acts like a huge jerk in front of the entire viewing world. Something he never did in any of his previous races. What the fuck? That's not how you write a twist villain. That's not how you write a fucking movie. The big race at the end is embarrassing. All the cars have crashed and this snail is super close to the finish line, but oh no, he's lost his super speed. What does he do? He just gives up. Bro, you are this close and you have no competition right now. Are you fucking kidding me? He needs a pep talk from his brother to finish the race because this is a movie for babies. Literal fucking infants. Well, gee, it's a good thing this baby movie is chock full of awful racial stereotypes as if it's actively trying to be the next Shark Tale. Well, newsflash, it will never be as memorable as Shark Tale. It's an absolute travesty that doesn't deserve to be talked about in the same breath as Shark Tale, let alone films like Megamind, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, and The Prince of Egypt. I went into this marathon knowing that DreamWorks had its fair share of sucky films, and even I was insulted and appalled by the level of sheer worthlessness present in Turbo. DreamWorks, do better. Whew. I hope the next movie on the list doesn't get me as angry.
This movie blows.
Are you kidding me, DreamWorks? Are you out of your mind? Look, I consider just leaving this movie off the list entirely, pretending it doesn't exist, as I've done for the past year or so. But no, this movie doesn't get the luxury of getting off scot-free. It's awful. It is insultingly terrible given how excellent its predecessors are. It can't commit to a consistent fucking tone to save its life. Oh, you want me to feel sad that King Harold is dead? Well, I'm so glad you front-loaded his death scene with a pile of lame jokes and then played a random Bond song during his funeral. I'm so glad most of your jokes, some of which work on paper, suffer from god-awful comedic timing that completely butchers them. I'm so happy you gave us a dipshit villain we already got in the last movie, leading a bunch of bigger dipshits who change allegiances and motivations every time anyone gives a mediocre 2-minute inspirational speech. But I guess it's okay when 90% of the heroes are just window dressing who don't add anything to the story whatsoever. Every single new character this movie introduces is irritating in their own special way. Every single scene feels like a waste of time. This entire movie feels like a waste of time. It is worthless. There is so little value here, and I am so happy that now that this video's done, I have no reason to ever revisit it for the rest of my life. Oh, what's that? You have a single well-written scene? One good scene within this pile of shit? Well, congrats! I guess I'll have to give this movie a 2 out of 10 instead of a 1 out of 10. What a fucking tremendous accomplishment. So thank you, DreamWorks. Thank you for shitting on one of the best sequels ever made by following it up with this embarrassment. Thank you for turning an emotional series with actual intelligent writing for adults into a fucking toddler's paradise. Thank you for making people think that the Shrek series as a whole was always garbage and we were just remembering things wrong. No, we weren't. The problem was always this fucking travesty of a film. Okay, the next one won't make me as angry, I promise. In my best animated feature ranking video, I described Spirited Away as an ethereal, immersive, unforgettable experience that leaves you a changed person by the end. All of that applies to The Boss Baby as well, but in the opposite way. This movie is the anti-Spirited Away. The first 10 minutes was the most anxiety-inducing, horrifying experience I've ever had watching a movie. I actually screamed at multiple intervals. This movie legitimately made me question my sanity over and over, and I saw Cats on opening night in theaters. I didn't think anything could break me, but this movie did. I had trouble processing not only what was real and what was imagination in the movie, but also whether or not the movie itself was a twisted, feverish figment of my imagination.
Are you the baby Jesus?
Yes, I'm the baby Jesus.
Eventually, things calmed down, and I was able to just watch the simultaneously nonsensical and conventional story unfold. The funniest parts of the entire movie were the attempts at emotional moments, like when the Boss Baby and the boy have a falling out and the Boss Baby storms away. I just burst out laughing because what the f did the movie expect me to do? Get emotional over the character of Boss Baby? It's Boss Baby. Then there's the ending where Hans Zimmer goes so inexplicably hard on the score that it's hysterical. Bro, this is Boss Baby you're scoring. Why are you trying so hard? You're just making the scene more ridiculous. I don't know, man. Boss Baby is insane. It's horrifying and cutesy, boring and captivating, unfunny and hilarious. A true enigma of an experience. It's everything I could have hoped for going into it and more. You, Turbo. This is the new Shark Tale, and I couldn't be happier. Only difference is I'm never watching this again because the Boss Baby is my sleep paralysis demon.
World Tour!
Troll World Tour is a movie with trolls. They make music and they do troll stuff. Okay. Look, this movie sounds like it has a good plot on paper. It tackles revisionist history and racism and stuff. No, it doesn't. It briefly pays lip service to these topics before bombarding you with
Gangnam Style.
It is about as deep as a glitter-filled puddle. I don't understand this movie. Like, why doesn't the sexy Sam Rockwell troll capture Poppy immediately? How did Poppy's gumdrop earplugs block out the power of a magic guitar? It's a magic guitar. It should work on you even if you don't hear the music. It's a magic guitar. Why doesn't Poppy just call their friends the Blurgons from the last movie? Have them step on the rock troll. Mission accomplished. Why, out of all the friends that could have come with Poppy and Justin Timberlake on this journey, why did it have to be the James Corden troll? I hate James Corden. So these are like K-pop trolls? Is there a Troll Korea? What's going on? The plot of this movie is just Infinity War, where there's 6 thingies a villain needs to put on a thing. But also Poppy tries to befriend a villain against her father's wishes, like How to Train Your Dragon 2. But then bounty hunters trap people using music, like in Shrek Forever After. It's not plagiarism if you steal from yourself, kids. I guess the rock troll was okay. The music was okay sometimes. I don't know. Hey, wait a minute. I don't need to talk about this movie. This is a ranking of the theatrical DreamWorks releases. And Trolls World Tour isn't a theatrical release. Is it? Haha! Nobody's smart but me!
Oscar! Raise the reef, buddy!
Shark Tale is such an atrocious movie and I don't understand how people like it. With that said, I love this movie. I am obsessed with it. It is such an abject failure of a motion picture in every conceivable way that it is truly captivating. Literally the only thing about this movie that works is the voice acting.
Oh, that's hot.
The writing is complete garbage, but the way these actors deliver their lines leads to some genuine, unironically funny moments.
I tell you, shut up! What? Hello?
Yeah, hey Mario. Let me get a large double olive.
Luca!
Oh, hi, boss.
You're working at Pizza Castle now?
Or maybe they're ironically funny, I can't tell. Otherwise, the animation is laughably unfinished. Every single character other than Puff Daddy and the octopus is either annoying or unlikable. Oscar is literally a villain that the movie refuses to call out. Lenny needs to come out and say, "No, Dad, I am not comfortable with eating a sentient living being alive." The movie prides itself on its edgy jokes and attempts to be a mafia movie geared toward adults. Then it magically resolves its conflict like it's an episode of Barney the fucking Dinosaur. Or Steven Universe. What? Who said that? Literally every single thing people hate about DreamWorks is in this movie. It is the perfect storm of awfulness that only comes once in a blue moon. It's probably the true worst DreamWorks movie, but I can't realistically rank it last because it is a joy to watch and think about and meme and be absolutely baffled by. I am never bored watching Shark Tale. I am always fully alert and attentive. I adore this movie and my obsession with it has only grown with time. And that's because it is, without a doubt, a cinematic disaster. Oh, and don't even get me started on the billboards.
It's Kids Bop 40 with some of today's biggest hits.
Hello, darkness, my old friend.
If Turbo was a terrible movie intended for babies, Trolls is a really good movie intended for babies. The animation is stellar and makes the whole thing look like a really neat art project. And honestly, I kinda liked it for about 30 minutes before it turned into, oh, let's sing 27 terrible pop song covers as we try to help this lady goblin hook up with McLovin Goblin. That's fun. Look, once again, this is a great baby movie, but it has such a boring story and it's such a bad musical that my interest in the film took a complete nosedive. And why do you need to auto-tune Justin Timberlake? He's Justin Timberlake, just let him sing normally. Whatever, it's a big old whatever movie that I have hilariously little to say about. Moving on.
Why won't you sing?
Because singing killed my grandma, okay?
Holy shit, that hamburger at the beginning looks real. Anyway, Monsters vs. Aliens is not very good. It's not quite as bad as I remember it being as a kid. I mean, this movie made me laugh at least 6 or 7 times, so that's worth something, I guess. None of the characters are hateable, though none of them are particularly likable. The action has such astoundingly low energy to it that it bored me to tears. And I feel like the idea of a monster movie parody could have been fleshed out better than not at all. Like, this isn't a parody of monster movies, it's just a monster movie for children that isn't particularly funny or enjoyable. Why not do what Megamind did and tell a really unique story that plays with the conventions of the superhero genre? Hell, I feel like even Shark Tale handled the parody angle better, since a Shark Mafia is at least an idea that parodies a typical mafia movie, even if they don't do anything with it. Bottom line is, you could do a lot worse than Monsters vs. Aliens, but you could do a lot better. And I will never forgive this movie for existing and being so visually close to Megamind, thus subconsciously tainting the latter film's reputation by making it look like a lame knockoff. Thanks for that, dick. I was not looking forward to The Croods, let me tell you. Even though I also never saw Rise of the Guardians as a kid, The Croods was the first DreamWorks movie that I specifically said, yeah, I'm too old for this too. Never checking it out in theaters or on DVD. Turns out I really didn't miss much. It's not as bad as I was expecting. I mean, I kind of liked it at first. It was nice and simple and charming. But its charm wears thin pretty quickly, and I was really bored with it during the second half. It's just an hour and a half of generic family conflicts, and haha, here's cavemen inventing a modern thing, which is just super repetitive. I was really disappointed when the iconic cinematic icon Grug, played by Nicolas Cage, threw his family off a cliff towards the end. It was disappointing because I thought that meant they were dead and the movie could officially end, but sadly no. Look, it's a perfectly serviceable kids movie and it has a couple good laughs, like when the sloth pulls out a knife and gets ready to shank a bitch, but it really can't make up for a dull experience. I'll end on a positive note though. The animation is real pretty. They did an amazing job with the vibrant, creative environments and creature designs. So good work. Anyway, can't wait to watch The Croods 2 when it comes to not theaters. I'm so excited to see how the epic story of Grug continues. Are you excited? I'm excited. Kill me.
We are the pirates who don't do anything.
Sinbad? More like Sin Bad? Ha! After 3 great 2D animated feature films in a row, Sinbad feels like a massive step down in every way, except the animation. This is a gorgeous looking movie. For the most part. You can tell they were a little too ambitious with some of the creature designs, which haven't aged terribly well. The story is about as basic and uninteresting as it gets. It's a MacGuffin quest for a magic book that has completely unexplained mystical powers. The only thing this book is used for is to power a lighthouse. Really, it's just a flimsy excuse for a high sailing adventure. I feel like this would make for a pretty decent video game story, but simply watching it unfold is a little tedious. I mean, if I wanted to watch a movie about a quest to cross the ocean and retrieve an important item to save someone from being executed, I'd just watch the SpongeBob movie. The characters were okay, but Sinbad himself really got on my nerves throughout most of the movie. Eris is animated really well, but she couldn't be more basic from a character standpoint if she tried. Looks like I don't need to amend my DreamWorks villains list to add her on. Congratulations, Verminator, you're safe from elimination. Look, this movie is fine, but compared to the DreamWorks movies that came out around the same time, it just feels like it's doing the bare minimum. I don't really feel like ever watching it again, sorry. Bazinga! Home was surprisingly not terrible. I'm impressed. Granted, there are a lot of terrible moments, like when Purple Bazinga Man drinks pee and eats a urinal cake. And also the plot during the second half of the movie doesn't make much sense, and it kind of makes the first half pointless. And I have no idea what happened to the Chief Shrek guy in the end. The movie kind of forgets about him, and the film keeps playing a new Rihanna song every 5 minutes, so that's annoying. But the movie's not terrible, I swear. The main characters honestly just have a really charming rapport with each other, and I like watching them go on this journey. There's a few jokes and loony scenarios that actually really land for me. Like when they have to disguise Bazinga and it looks like it's going to be a huge makeover montage, but then it turns out all they need to do is put a beauty mark on him and that completely fools all the other aliens. I like that. I like how the plot is basically stop Bazinga's party invitation email from reaching an evil group of aliens until the second half kind of drops that plot line for something more confusing. But yeah, the characters are surprisingly charming enough and these alien inventions are inventive enough to keep this loose plot afloat. Like, you're seriously going to tell me that Turbo had more thought and effort and creativity put into it than this? Get out of town. Home is a deceptively sweet movie that clearly had some good heart thrown into it, but it's also got a lot holding it back from being actually good. Still, I appreciate the effort. Never gonna watch it again, but congrats to this movie for subverting my expectations of it.
Are there other bugs in your life?
No.
Ants was the very first DreamWorks movie ever, and a gigantic middle finger to Pixar's A Bug's Life. But is it good?
You know, I was gonna let you become part of my most erotic fantasies.
This movie is basically a non-terrible version of Happy Feet. It's completely all over the place and absolutely bonkers, but I think I enjoyed it. I like how the main character accidentally incites a social uprising and stops the villain from carrying out his goal of ethnic cleansing. I like the poop joke. But this movie is just so scattershot that it's really hard to say if it's good overall. Its adult themes and jokes are almost a little jarring, unlike something like Rango where it feels like they naturally fit the story and setting. The princess and villain are kind of flat and annoying, but I like the other characters enough. The timing on a lot of the jokes is weirdly off, and I don't know if that's a symptom of the stilted early animation or what, but whatever. I don't know, it's fine, but a bit of a lackluster start for this studio if you ask me. Almost like this wasn't intended to be their first movie and it got rushed out in order to compete with a similar movie or something. But what do I know? I don't review and analyze DreamWorks animated movies for a living or anything.
Jason and the Pussycats.
Even though Puss in Boots is one of the DreamWorks movies I saw as a kid, I could not for the life of me remember what I thought of it. And after rewatching it, One thing I appreciate about this movie is that it's definitely not a Shrek movie. Despite being a spin-off, it's completely tonally distinct from the Shrek trilogy, and it never once feels like I'm watching a Shrek movie. The downside is that this movie is nowhere near as good as the Shrek trilogy. Whereas Shrek subverts the fairy tale genre, Puss in Boots plays it completely straight. It's basically just a Jack and the Beanstalk Humpty Dumpty mashup adaptation, and it really doesn't do anything particularly special. My favorite part of the movie is this extended flashback scene where we see Puss and Humpty's childhood and what caused them to split apart. But it ends up taking up so much time that the actual quest itself feels really short and underwhelming. I would have loved a DreamWorks take on an Indiana Jones or Uncharted-like story, but the quest is over before it really gets interesting. It's also a shockingly unfunny movie. Like, the first three Shrek movies have so many good laughs, but I can't remember anything that humorous from this film. I like the ultimate resolution to Puss and Humpty's relationship, and it makes the climax pretty interesting. But aside from that, it's just an aggressively okay movie. Nothing here is bad, but nothing is done particularly well either. Dare I say it, Puss in Boots is honestly just a movie that exists. Although Puss does refer to himself as the furry lover multiple times, so that's something I suppose. I must be out of my goddamn mind, because I honestly kind of liked Madagascar 3 on my most recent viewing. And that's insane. I trashed this movie pretty hard in my Madagascar video, but truth be told, it's not that bad on rewatch. The main characters outside of Alex are still pretty pointless, but I kind of like the side characters and their stories. The action during the climax is pretty exciting and on par with the great car chase in the beginning. The humor isn't quite as Illumination-esque as I remember. I think the real problem was the character design on the humans. It's pretty awful and just screams Illumination, but the jokes aren't as terrible as I remember. They're not that good though. This is still the least funny Madagascar, and it's still a tedious liar-revealed story, and the circus plot is really contrived and lame. And why did they abandon Alex's family and never address what happened to them? It doesn't make sense. Nothing makes sense. It's still not a very good movie, but honestly, there's a lot to like here to balance out all the stuff I don't like. I regret not seeing that stuff sooner, but whatever. Madagascar 3 is also officially a movie that exists. Congratulations. That doesn't mean I'm gonna force myself to watch it when I marathon all of Noah Baumbach's films. He didn't direct this one, so it doesn't count. God, Noah Baumbach co-writing a Madagascar movie is a fucking insane fact of life. But I guess it's not as insane as Martin Scorsese appearing in Shark Tale, so I don't even know what my point was. Let's move on. Madagascar the First came out right after Shrek 2 and Shark Tale, and it's pretty much the exact midpoint between the former's greatness and the latter's shittiness. It's got a ton of really funny stuff and a ton of not great stuff. Honestly, in hindsight, it's kind of ridiculous that this gigantic franchise spawned from this movie. Like, I never could have imagined it if I didn't live through it, because this movie is really nothing special. I honestly don't have much to say about it that I didn't say in my original vid about the trilogy. It's a perfectly adequate, sometimes extremely funny movie that I'm pretty nostalgic for, but it's not really that great, so whatever. The only thing I have left to say is that comedy peaked when Melman said, "Guys, we're running out of time," with a clock stuck to his head. Look at that. Comedy gold.
Wait a minute, accidents can happen.
Dad, we're not going to kill this chicken.
There is so much to love about Chicken Run. The animation is stunning. Honestly, this movie is what made me realize that stop motion animation is the most timeless form of animation out there. This film still looks amazing 20 years later. The characters are also really endearing and likable. I enjoy their interactions and designs and jokes and such. The climax is a ton of fun, and is it me or did the Madagascar movie steal a lot from the plain stuff in this movie? It's eerily similar in a lot of areas, ideas. But yeah, I guess it really isn't plagiarism if you're doing it to yourself. Even though technically Aardman made this film, but let's not worry about that. So yeah, I really love just about everything in this movie. Except the story. I found that incredibly tedious and uninteresting. Oh boy, the rooster needs to teach them how to fly, but he can't fly, so he leaves, and then they formulate this elaborate plan to build a plane and escape, which, hey, wait a minute, why couldn't the movie have just been about building this plane? Why did we have to waste most of the movie on the Mel Gibson rooster giving flying lessons? It ultimately feels really disconnected from the climax. Like, am I missing something here? So yeah, Chicken Run looks amazing and has great characters, but I really don't feel like sitting through most of it a second time. It had everything but an interesting story, which was on the verge of greatness. It was this close. Also, are we just not going to talk about the fact that Mr. Tweety murders his wife at the end?
Our world doesn't deserve you. Yet.
For the most part, every single video I've made on a DreamWorks animated movie thus far is accurate to my current thoughts and feelings. Except for one where I definitely gave a movie too much credit. Yeah, there's a certain DreamWorks sequel that really wasn't as good as I gave it credit for. And that movie, of course, is Madagascar 2. Don't get me wrong, it's still the best main series Madagascar movie. It actually tried to have emotional beats with the main characters. The funny scenes in this are still insanely funny. But after rewatching this one so close to some other much funnier DreamWorks movies, it really started to hit me that this one isn't nearly as funny as I remember. Hell, the first one might actually be funnier overall, even if it does rely a lot on tedious pop culture references. Point is, while I still think this is the best one, I don't think it's easily the best one anymore. I love a lot about it, like all the Moto Moto stuff, the plane stuff, the volcano stuff, the Moto Moto stuff, the dam stuff, the penguin stuff, the Moto Moto stuff, the Nana stuff, the wait, what was I talking about again? But man, the stuff with Alex and his dad and the pathetic villain lion is not nearly as funny as I remember. And it takes up a lot more time than I remember as well. Whatever, it's still a decent movie, but I feel like if I want a stronger comedy, I'll just watch something with hedges or bees in it instead. God, I just can't believe how this video has shifted my Madagascar paradigm entirely. It used to be boom, first movie, 6 out of 10. Second movie, 8 out of 10. Third movie, 4 out of 10. Now the entire trilogy is just floating around in 6 out of 10 limbo, and my video on the trilogy is basically ruined. I can't tell if these movies are good or bad anymore. This trilogy is an utter enigma that has fried my brain entirely. Somebody put me out of my misery, holy shit.
Okay.
What the
Abominable! Can you believe that?
Abominable was amazing. For like 25 minutes, then it turned into a worse version of Up. Movies like these really frustrate me because they could so easily go down as classics with a little story retooling, but instead this film has already been forgotten about. My favorite aspects of the film were during the beginning, like I said, where we see the main character living life, saving up money, and befriending this Yeti creature. It was wholesome as heck, and pretty magical, not gonna lie. But again, these characters soon hop on this boat and go on an adventure through the wilderness to get this Yeti home, and it's not really that good. The Yeti has vague, convenient, magical powers that do whatever the plot needs them to in order to get the characters out of any situation, which is really lame. Onward may be a worse movie, but at least in that movie they use different unique spells for each situation. This movie just has magic Yeti powers that can do anything basically, and it really deflates the tension. You start to ask, why can't the Yeti just fly them straight to his home if he can basically do anything? Also, there's a twist villain in this movie that, despite being something I legit didn't see coming, doesn't really add to the story at all. If you took the twist villain out of the story and just played it straight, the story would not really change. So that's odd. Also, this researcher lady looks exactly like a mix between Merida and Kari from The Incredibles. So that's a thing as well. I don't know, man. This movie tried, but not hard enough as far as I'm concerned. Props for setting the story in a place that isn't America, though. It's always cool to see different cultures portrayed in animated movies.
Prepare for my civil rights beam.
Well, boys, we did it. My character arc is complete, and I now finally see the Penguins of Madagascar for the masterpiece that it is. And by masterpiece, I mean it's slightly better than all 3 Madagascar movies. What it lacks in humor compared to the first 2 Madagascars, it makes up for in zaniness and surprisingly good action. The plot is actually decent, and the villain is enjoyable, plus there are plenty of funny moments here and there. The movie kinda loses me with these other secret agents who aren't really that interesting, plus any attempts at an emotional moment really fall flat. Bro, this This is the Penguins of Madagascar movie. Just fully immerse yourself in the zaniness and don't bother with the drama. Whatever, it's still a really fun time, but once again, I don't have that much to say about it. Just like the trilogy, it is also a 6 out of 10 film, and the show was still better. You know what else is better? The Madagascar Penguins and A Christmas Carol. Now that's an all-time classic. It doesn't count for the purposes of this list, but I'll let you know where I'd rank it if it did count when we get to that spot. Alright, we're officially about to get into the top 20. The good movies, the 7 out of 10s and above. I could use a breather before that because I have been talking for 30 minutes! How about I use my break to talk to you even more about Squarespace? There's no better way to build a website that'll chronicle every piece of the epic Madagascar lore, let me tell you. Squarespace is a fantastic, intuitive online website builder that allows you to create beautiful websites for your business or personal hobby. Present your work using Squarespace's professional portfolio designs. Display projects in customizable galleries and add password-protected pages to share private work with clients. You can even present your videos from YouTube, Vimeo, and Animoto on your Squarespace site. Add an image overlay to your video to improve your website's load speed by waiting to embed video players until playback starts. Every design automatically includes a unique mobile experience that matches the overall style of your website, so your content will look great on every device, every time. And if you don't want that, you can always disable the mobile view from Website Manager. Buying a domain from Squarespace is simple because there are no hidden fees or price hikes. Each domain comes with an ad-free parking page and free WHOIS privacy on eligible domains. Squarespace sells over 200 top-level domains, so you can find the perfect name for your website. Choose a URL that ends in .com, .net, .org, or if you're feeling funky, you can get a more specific one like .art. If you're ready to share your passions or promote your business with the rest of the world, head to squarespace.com for a free trial. And when you're ready to launch, go to squarespace.com/ShapeForAList to save 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain.
Oh, shit! A rat!
Okay, look at the animation on the humans in Flushed Away. You know what they remind me of?
800-588-2300 Empire. Today.
Aside from that, Flushed Away is pretty good. I enjoyed this movie's sense of humor, I like the villain and especially his henchmen a lot. I like the action, I like how the rat world is built from various human artifacts, and the villain's plan is honestly really creative and clever, gotta give some props there. Some stuff isn't too great, like these prototype minion slugs in a movie that came out 4 years before the minions existed. Even as a kid, I felt marketed to through the existence of these slugs. Yeesh. Also, the movie does that whole, oh, the main characters don't like each other, and there's wacky misunderstandings over and over, whoopsie shtick, and that's annoying. Also, this movie does that whole, the main character is sad that he's alone thing, and it really doesn't do that terribly well either. Like, I think the Sonic movie did that thing better, honestly. But hey, this is still a pretty fun movie with the most alarmingly terrible human animation in DreamWorks history, but they're in it for less than a minute, so that's okay, I guess. Good movie, that's all, moving on.
What about dinner?
Fuck you.
Just cram, okay? We're closed for Ebola.
Dude, I loved the Captain Underpants books as a kid. They were hilarious and awesome and everything I could have hoped for. And it's so refreshing to see a movie adaptation that perfectly captures what made the original book special, right down to the flip-o-rama. The Captain Underpants movie is just so good. This is the one DreamWorks movie that makes fart and poop humor work, because it's integral to the spirit of the books, and to childhood in general. The art style of this movie is incredible, capturing the charm of the original book series designs expertly. George and Harold have amazing chemistry, and the icon Professor Poopy Pants is a great villain as well. Plus, Captain Underpants himself is epic, bro. This movie kind of falters in the pacing department, like way too much time is dedicated to hiding Captain Underpants and keeping him from turning back into Mr. Krupp, and not enough time is dedicated to the villain and the super fun battle stuff. It's great when it comes in, but at that point the movie is almost over, which kind of sucks. But overall, a really good time that'll delight fans of the original book so much. I mean, they put the everything but fabric softener store in the movie. That's how you know they gave a shit about these books. Alright, so The Road to El Dorado is a bit of a weird one for me. On the one hand, No. Are you kidding me? No. Bad Rotten Tomatoes. Bad critics. But on the other hand, I'm not as head over heels in love with this movie as a lot of other people are. Comedically, it's fantastic. I absolutely love this movie's sense of humor. Tulio and Miguel are so damn fun and entertaining and gay. I love it. I also really like most of the songs. Sure, they're doing that Tarzan thing where a disembodied voice is singing instead of the characters. But the good news is I love Elton John as opposed to Phil Collins, who I have no strong feelings about one way or the other. So the songs really work for me, even though I would have preferred having the characters sing them, considering how fantastic It's Tough to Be a God turned out. I also think the animation is outstanding. It's clean, it's crisp, the melding of 2D characters and 3D backgrounds makes the movie feel richly cinematic. And I think the more adult humor fits the tone of this movie way more than it did Ants. But the actual story is my biggest problem with the film. It starts strong, but it's kinda limp and weak by the second, and especially the third acts. I think the way they stumble into this ball game is really contrived. I don't care for the melodramatic two friends hating each other shtick, and I feel like they played their hand too early with the Jaguar monster, since the last 10 minutes of the film have significantly less tension. But this movie thrives on its great characters, and there's too many memorable moments with them to count. Plus, props to the story for not doing a tedious liar revealed storyline. I love the scene where the high priest just casually insinuates to Miguel that he knows he isn't a god. It's nice that it doesn't matter to him that Miguel isn't a god. He's just happy Miguel left a positive impact on his community. Overall, I really like this movie, and I rewatch it again and again, since even though it doesn't keep my attention all the way through to the end, it's still a delightfully fun time.
According to all known laws of aviation, there is no way a bee should be able to fly. Its wings are too small to get its fat little body off the ground. The bee, of course, flies anyway. Because bees don't care what humans think is impossible.
I genuinely can't believe I ranked this movie so high. I am gonna get so much hate for this. But fuck it. If Shark Tale solidified DreamWorks' reputation for making bad movies, and Shrek the Third solidified their completely unwarranted reputation for making bad sequels, then it was B-Movie that solidified their reputation for making bonkers movies. Much like Boss Baby, B-Movie is basically a shitpost that's trying to pass itself off as a feature film. But I will give B-Movie this. Unlike Boss Baby, it is a really, really good shitpost. This might actually be the funniest movie DreamWorks has made. I'm not joking. The story is scattershot and not well put together at all, but when the movie is making me laugh this hard, I could honestly care less. Every character in this film cracks me up, from Jerry Seinfeld B to Renee Zellweger lady to John Goodman lawyer to Patrick Warburton Ken. You can tell that the voice actors just had an absolute blast with this movie. Every nonsensical plot point is completely justified on account of the insane comedic potential they provide. The only part of this movie I don't like is the last 30 minutes or so, where it tries to take its ridiculous plot seriously and the jokes start to slow down. But other than that, this movie is comedy gold. I have an ironic enjoyment of the story and a genuine enjoyment of the humor, and I don't see why people dislike it so much. It's just that fun. After my opinions on the Madagascar movies changed so drastically on rewatch, I was really hoping the same thing would happen with How to Train Your Dragon 2. I really wanted everything to finally click so I could just fall in love with this movie like everyone else. And my opinion did change on rewatch. The movie got a little worse.
Say what?
I'm sorry, y'all, but to me, this is the biggest disappointment out of all the DreamWorks movies. Obviously, it's still really good, but for a franchise this special, really good just doesn't cut it. And it's so frustrating because the outline of the story is perfect. It's just all these little details that pile up and bring down the entire experience. I already made a video covering all my problems with the movie, so check that out for more details. But yeah, this rewatch made a couple of those problems worse. The side characters annoyed me more this time. The villain was way more embarrassing than I remember. And the weird pacing made it feel like nothing really happened by the end, which is crazy. A ton of stuff happened in this movie. A ton of really great emotional stuff. But it didn't register for me because the connective tissue between the handful of phenomenal scenes just wasn't that good. It's still a good movie. I still enjoyed myself, but it frustrates me beyond all reason because I can so easily visualize the masterpiece it was so close to being. Again, watch my video if you want the deets. All I can say here is Stan Gobber, because he's the best character in this trilogy. Okay, moving on. Let me tell you, even though I already watched this movie recently for my video on it, I was still excited to watch it again. Over the Hedge is such a fun time. The visuals are great, the cast of characters is so endearing, it tells its story surprisingly well, it has the Verminator come on! It's just such an easy movie to like. DreamWorks has made its fair share of hateable garbage, and this movie is nowhere near that level. It's a delight. I love jamming out to the Ben Folds music or laughing at the spectacular voice cast. It's just a jam. Over the Hedge is a jam of a movie, and I'm sorry if you can't see that, society. Anyway, though, I've talked about it a lot, so watch the video on it if you want more elaboration. Okay, bye!
Go on, bud. Lead them to the hidden world.
Alright, look you guys, I've been hearing a lot of criticism towards a certain DreamWorks Part 3. Y'all are telling me that it's too kiddified, that it drops the emotional impact of the first two films for safe gags that really mess with the tone. And all of this contributes to a movie that's just not nearly as good as the first two. I've thought all this criticism over, and you're right. Kung Fu Panda 3 is easily the weakest one. Like, it's a good movie on its own, but coming off the first two, yeah, it's noticeably weaker. Kai in particular is emblematic of how this movie just isn't really trying quite as hard. Despite an excellent musical theme and some great J.K. Simmons voice acting, Kai just doesn't have the same compelling backstory or intimidating presence as Tai Lung and Shen. He's a decent villain, but not nearly as good as what came before. Speaking of which, yeah, this film gives off hardcore Return of the Jedi Ewok Village vibes. After such a dark, intense second chapter, the third one has us vibing in this panda village, and there's not as much tension as there should be until the final battle. The film does have a great message about being yourself and using your own strengths. In fact, it arguably portrays this message stronger than the first film did. Plus, the stuff with both opposed dads is strong, the humor is good, and the spirit world battles are fantastic. The emotional moments still hit, the action is still really good, it's still a Kung Fu Panda movie at the end of the day. Despite being the weakest in the trilogy, it's really, really good, and it stuck the landing for the series exceptionally well. I'm so relieved it turned out so good, considering the fact that the DreamWorks films released around the same time were less than stellar.
Time travel! I see this as an absolute win.
How in the halibut is Mr. Peabody and Sherman this good? Like, this is honestly one of the biggest surprises on this entire list. I saw it in art class during high school one day and I thought it was decent, but even then, I didn't give it enough credit. This movie slaps. It's so funny and exciting and heartwarming, and it's a cute little history lesson, and seriously, have I mentioned how shocked I am that I kind of love this movie? I care about the relationship between this boy and his dog dad. I live for all these historical references and all these time travel shenanigans. The voice cast is great, the premise makes for so much wacky fun, the animation has a great style to it. They make an Oedipus joke at one point, like, come on! This is just such a hard movie to hate. It's not deep, it doesn't have any super strong themes or life lessons, but it's just fun. Pure, unadulterated fun that I highly recommend.
Was that the bite of 87? You're guardians of the galaxy.
Out of all the DreamWorks movies that weren't really successful when they really should have been, Rise of the Guardians is perhaps the one that stings the most. Not only is it really great, but it's practically begging for a franchise with how unique and enticing its world is. More creative interpretations of holiday-themed icons, please. Less trolls. Less of this troll shit, DreamWorks. Some elements of this movie fall a little flat, like the villain, who's a good rising threat, but a really boring character with a generic motivation and super lame design. Also, the design of these kids isn't great. They kind of look like slightly better versions of the kids from Monster House, but only slightly. Still, I like these holiday heroes and the rapport they have with each other. What really makes the movie though is Jack Frost and his identity crisis. I found it really intriguing and I really wanted him to find out who he was and be seen by people. It got me super emotionally invested. Aside from that, the creative concepts are great, the characters are enjoyable, the stakes are high, and it's just a really enjoyable, wholesome film. Maybe it would have done better at the box office if the title wasn't so generic and people didn't get it confused with that stupid ass owl movie, but whatever. It's surprisingly great and deserved better than what it got. Holy Shrek. I love shit. Holy shit, I love Shrek. I'm literally the real life version of Will Smith from I Am Legend. I can quote this movie verbatim like it's nobody's business. And that's exactly what I did on my most recent watch through. The reason I've been procrastinating so much on my Shrek 1 analysis is because this movie is such a huge talked about phenomenon that I really don't know what angle to approach it at. I guess a good angle for this video would be how audacious and daring it was, especially when looking at it as a piece of the overall DreamWorks puzzle. It completely subverted the Disney style of musical storytelling that most animation studios at the time, DreamWorks included, adhered to. It really changed the game not only for animation, but parody as well. I've talked about it before and I'll talk about it much more later. It's Shrek, man. It's funny, it's down to earth, it's endlessly rewatchable. If it wasn't for the whole forced, lame, misunderstanding trope, it would easily be in my top 5 favorite animes. But as is, it's still a great anime to check out.
It's hideous.
You know, that hurts my feelings. I tried going on a date, you know.
If it's true what they say.
Holy shit, Shrek Forever After is great. It's good as hell. And like, yeah, obviously, this shouldn't be a revelation to the guy who talked about how good this movie is for 42 minutes straight before. But watching this movie right after Shrek the Third is such a fucking shock to the system that it's unbelievable. The quality of the writing just shoots straight through the roof. Even now, there's little details I never picked up on. Like at the beginning when Shrek is in his bed, discontent. He brushes past the handkerchief Fiona gave him in the first movie without a second thought while he's grabbing the wanted poster from his ogre days. That's just an amazing touch that subtly shows how discontent he's become with his marriage and his life. And it's just fantastic to watch his character arc where he realizes what's truly important in life. And the villain is great, and the jokes are mostly funny, and the emotional moments hit. Oh my God, it's so great. I've talked about this movie the longest out of any DreamWorks animated movie ever, so I won't go on any longer here. Just wow, what a perfect conclusion to the Shrek trilogy. The only bad thing that just popped up on my most recent viewing is that I can't look at Fat Puss the same way again because now he gives me war flashbacks to Rebel Wilson and Cats. I just can't watch. I want to be free of this pain.
No crack, Gromit. We've forgotten the crack.
I've already talked about Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit before. It's still very fun, very charming, very cheeky, and totally delightful. But none of that matters because I've come to a stunning revelation about this movie. Wallace and Gromit, The Curse of the Were-Rabbit is a prequel to Over the Hedge.
Oh, come now. I do believe the vicar's been to the communion wine again.
Exhibit A.
I believe someone phoned about an animal problem. The solution is standing.
Exhibit 2. Exhibit Gamma.
Get your hairy mitts off my wife.
Okay, I don't actually know what that last thing had to do with Over the Hedge, but you get the idea. DreamWorks was so impressed with Aardman's subliminal hedge messaging that they adapted said messaging into their own feature film less than a year later.
I have eyes that can see right through lead.
Chances are, you already know how I feel about Megamind. This film is really something special. Like, watching it in quick succession with a lot of other merely good DreamWorks movies really made it hit me just how above and beyond Megamind goes to tell a rich, well-developed, well-paced, exceedingly funny story. I'm so happy it's gotten so much belated attention over the years because it truly deserves it. Again though, this video is getting real long and I think I covered everything I wanted to say about the movie in my original video. It's just a work of genius. Hilarious, profound, undeniable genius. I can't wait for more and more people to rediscover it and see how great it truly is.
Fuck you! You fucking dick! Always.
What?
God, now this is how you do a sequel. Kung Fu Panda 2 isn't quite as amazing as the first, in my opinion. It's a little bit slower paced, a little less funny, the action is a little weaker, and the villain is just a smidge less intimidating. But oh my God, for every one misstep, this movie gets 3 other things right. This movie is an emotional tour de force. It tells such a shockingly powerful story about grief and abandonment and emotional turmoil, and oh God, it's so well done. The scene where Po finds inner peace is one of the best sequences DreamWorks has ever made. Watching him learn to process his trauma so he can heal and acknowledge that it doesn't define who he is now is such a fucking phenomenal message. As I've said before, Shen is the most evil villain DreamWorks has ever made. And I love what a personal threat he poses to Po. Like, Tai Lung was Shifu's burden to bear, and Kai was Oogway's burden. But this is the only time in the trilogy where Po's connection to the main villain is the focus of the story. And it all builds to a sensational climax. The colors in this one also just pop, more so than the first film. It's visually striking, it tells a great story, it's funny, it's thrilling, it's emotional, it's everything you could possibly want in a sequel, and more. God, I should really talk about these movies sometime, shouldn't I?
You create...
Spirit Stallion of the Cinnamon is so damn great! How come none of y'all never told me? Well, okay, mostly great. I'll address the only two problems with this film right here and now. The songs are hilariously bad, and I wouldn't mind so much if they didn't cram 4 of them in a row during the first 20 minutes. I got secondhand embarrassment from these stupid ass songs, but fortunately the movie really toned the frequency down as it went along, so that was nice. And then there's Matt Damon narrating the horse's thoughts. Talk about a buzzkill. This is legitimately what's holding me back from giving this movie a 9 or maybe even 10 out of 10 because it's so jarring and doesn't fit the tone whatsoever, and worst of all, it adds absolutely nothing. 90% of the time, Matt Damon is saying something that's blatantly obvious based on the horse's expressions or another aspect of the visuals. It almost feels like they went back and added him in post, like, oh, this movie is too mature and artistic. We need to dumb it down so kids don't get confused by the things that are blatantly shown through the visuals. I get that Matt Damon needed to practice playing an animal for his dramatic turn as an aardvark version of himself on Arthur a few years later, but this is just too much, man. So yeah, those two blemishes are what's holding this movie back from perfection, because honestly, everything else in this movie is perfect. It's like everything Good Dinosaur should have been. The fact that the horses don't talk is wonderful. Sometimes I don't want to hear celebrity voices telling obnoxious jokes out of an animated animal's mouth. I just want to see a beautiful, uplifting story about a horse trying to get home. I got so invested in his romance with Lady Horse and his friendship with Little Creek. The movie takes its time and makes these relationships feel so natural, and it earns every dramatic beat to the point where I may or may not have actually cried at what is essentially a fake out death. But that's how well it's done. The beautiful melding of 2D characters and 3D environments, first seen in Prince of Egypt and Road to El Dorado, continues to evolve, making for such stunning action sequences. The colors are absolutely magnificent, and the score, holy shit, the score! It's so unique and varied and fits the mood of every scene so well. I really can't gush about this movie enough, so we'll put a pin in this conversation and talk about it more in its own separate video. Just great job, DreamWorks. You really nailed it with this one.
I am the Night Fury Killer.
This ranking was hard as shit to get through at times. The 2010s especially were loaded with so many terrible films that beat me down and made me question whether or not this marathon was even worth finishing. But damn it, I stuck it out. Not only because I had come so far already, but because I knew this masterpiece was waiting for me at the end of the tunnel. How to Train Your Dragon: The Hidden World is phenomenal. It takes a similar approach as Shrek Forever After and recenters the narrative on the series' most important relationship, Hiccup and Toothless. It realizes that after all these years of the two codepending on each other, it's finally time to examine both of them as individuals. And this makes for a gripping story where both of them discover their own identities, ultimately realizing that despite how much they care for each other, they need to go their separate ways in order to survive and lead their respective tribes. It's such a profound story about love and loss, and it astounds me that DreamWorks went for such a bittersweet, yet ultimately perfect conclusion to this thematically rich, emotionally charged trilogy. I previously called this the best film in the series, but on rewatch, it's definitely got some stuff holding it back from topping the first one. The annoying side characters are still annoying, the middle of the story is a bit clunky, and yeah, Grimble did chain Toothless and the Light Fury up way too quickly, for sure. But for the most part, this movie is a huge improvement over the second in nearly every way. The villain is far more intimidating. The gorgeous flying sequences carried solely by the score are far back. The focus is on the relationships that matter the most to the story. Toothless feels like more of his own character than he ever has before. The climax is far more enticing, the emotional beats are even stronger, and the ending is honestly the best out of any DreamWorks movie. I know the studio is still going, but honestly, I'm totally content with considering this the series finale of DreamWorks. Like how Endgame is a great series finale for the MCU. It really does feel like this is the swan song for the entire studio, where they pulled out all the stops and delivered one last tour de force emotional masterpiece. It's been quite a rocky road to get to this point, but it was all worth it for films like this. I'll review it soon, I promise.
I'm gonna kick your ass!
Kung Fu Panda is awesomeness incarnate. It is so much awesomeness crammed into a single movie. I honestly can't believe how well it works. It's a really great depiction of imposter syndrome and trying to live up to impossible standards imposed upon you. But at the same time, it's remarkable to watch Po's perseverance and passion shine through, in spite of everyone telling him to quit. The philosophies offered by Master Oogway are really thought-provoking and interesting. The internal conflict Shifu grapples with over whether to trust his master's judgment or not is great. The pain Tai Lung had to endure after being told he was destined for greatness is really compelling. All the characters are instantly relatable and identifiable, which makes the drama in this film surprisingly strong. And that drama is channeled into some truly breathtaking, intense, well-choreographed, amazingly done fight sequences. From the prison escape to the bridge battle to Tai Lung and Shifu's climactic final duel, every new action sequence ups the intensity and dramatic stakes considerably, culminating in a more laid-back and humorous final battle that beautifully illustrates Po's unorthodox fighting style. Tai Lung probably could have beaten Po if they turned stage hazards and items off, but the fact that it's believable that a novice like Po can defeat Tai Lung using the attributes and abilities that make him special, rather than by trying to be someone he's not, is a really powerful message. It's stunning how a movie this conceptually goofy can tell such a profound, exciting story that adheres to Chinese philosophies and culture so well. It's simply amazing. Yeah, I really do need to make videos on these movies, don't I? Dragon! In some ways, How to Train Your Dragon is kind of the anti-DreamWorks movie. Not trying to insult DreamWorks here, I'm just saying that at this stage in the game, we all knew their brand. Celebrity voice cast, somewhat raunchy humor, the whole shebang. Vanessa! Even their best movies like Shrek and Kung Fu Panda adhere to this formula while also being really excellent in their own rights.
The scroll has given him power!
The first How to Train Your Dragon, however, feels the most like a classic Disney film. It has the sweeping, emotional score. It has the bond between a quirky loner and his lovable animal sidekick. It doesn't have a lot of raunchy humor outside of some lines from the annoying celebrity voice cast side characters, who admittedly are much less annoying in this movie compared to the sequels. Overall, this movie just captures a certain magic that isn't present in most DreamWorks movies, even many of the great ones. I guess it is that sense of Disney magic, which makes sense since this movie's directors are the same duo behind Lilo and Stitch. They probably picked up a thing or two working for Disney Animation. And yet, I don't want to sell DreamWorks short here because this movie simply would not be the same if it came straight from Disney. DreamWorks are the masters of enthralling, tense, breathtaking sequences, from the finale of Shrek 2 to the insane fights in Kung Fu Panda. And with this movie, they craft some of the most gorgeous, uplifting flying sequences in any animated film ever. And these amazing sequences enhance such a well-paced, well-told, emotionally rich story that takes my breath away every time I rewatch it. I am so happy this film exists. I feel like it's the one DreamWorks movie that anyone can enjoy, even if they hate DreamWorks' usual output. It's just impossible to deny what a monumental achievement this film and this franchise truly is.
Hit it!
I cannot stress enough how much of a fucking miracle this movie is. I almost want to make a second video about it because I feel like I didn't cover nearly everything that's amazing about Shrek 2. I love every single scene in this movie. Every single aspect of it works. Not only is it consistently funny, not only is it a perfect extension of the first movie's world, not only is it tightly written to the point where there's barely any filler, not only does the entire soundtrack slap, not only is the story deeply emotionally driven and really heartwarming, not only is the entire cast amazing in their roles, not only does it have the best DreamWorks villain ever, not only is the climax unbelievably phenomenal beyond all reason, but this movie gave us Doris, voiced by Larry King, a true cinematic icon. I could go on and on about this movie, but I think you already know why it's a masterpiece. What a godsend of a feature film. I truly never expected Shrek 2 to be more important to my adulthood than my childhood, but I think it's just a testament to its staying power as an integral cornerstone of both pop culture and my generation. It's one of only 2 DreamWorks films that I would give that rare, elusive 10 out of 10 score to. And I think you can already guess what the other film is. On my most recent viewing of this film, it finally hit me. The Prince of Egypt might actually be the best animated film ever made. It's honestly impossible to do such an unexpectedly majestic work of genius justice with words, but I'll try. This is the only DreamWorks film that feels like a completely uncompromised vision. A movie that tells the exact story it wants to tell without any executive interference. There's a large celebrity voice cast and there's some comedic relief, yet neither of these detract from such a profound and sufficiently mature retelling of the story of Moses. Nothing is sugar-coated, nothing is dumbed down or softened. It really is the best possible adaptation of this story. This movie uses the rich language of cinema to convey ideas and themes just through the visuals alone. It's tremendously profound for a movie intended for younger audiences. The songs range from great to phenomenal, not a single bad track to be found. They contribute so much to the size and scope of the story, taking full advantage of the medium of animation in the process. Even the weakest song in the movie made my top 30 villain songs list, though to be fair, it'd probably get kicked off by Kick It Up a Notch from Starship now that I've seen that, but I digress. The characters are fantastic, with the growing rift between Moses and Ramses coming across as being so heartbreakingly genuine. The sequences and set pieces this movie shows us, from Passover to the parting of the Red Sea to everything in between, do such an amazing job of immersing us in this grand, tragic, and profoundly human story. The true miracle of this movie is how accessible it is to people of all faiths. I've seen so many people say that they adore this movie despite being atheist, and as a Christian who thinks 90% of Christian media is garbage, it's absolutely wonderful to see a movie tell a biblical story with such respect, finesse, and faithfulness to the core of what made the original story so impactful. There's so much to be said about this film, and I could never say it all. The Prince of Egypt is easily the greatest DreamWorks movie of all time. It isn't even close. Nothing will ever top this bold, risky, beautifully animated, artistically driven magnum opus of an amazing studio. Nothing except the Madagascar Penguins and A Christmas Carol, baby! Remember when I said I'd tell you where on the list this would go if it actually counted? It's number 1. It's a masterpiece. Unironically, the greatest thing to ever come out of the Madagascar franchise, this holiday classic endures as a testament to the wonder and artistry of the medium of film. Incredible. I watch this Academy Award for Best Picture winning short film every Christmas, Hanukkah, Halloween, Kwanzaa, and also all the other days of the year. John Wick wishes it had action this good. Gex wishes it was this funny.
Seriously, this is
Like a luau at Mel Blanc's house.
At one point, the old lady is watching a football game on TV, but she's wearing an Alex the Lion foam finger. Did she not have a foam finger for the football team she's watching? Why even wear a foam finger? She's alone in her house. The Madagascar Penguins in a Christmas Camper tells important life lessons about family, eggnog, how mail systems work in apartment buildings, and it is for all these reasons why Mike's New Car is the best DreamWorks movie ever made. Thanks for coming. I'm gonna go lay down now. This took a lot out of me. Goodbye.